The Galactic Council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. Inside, representatives from 847 different species gathered for another regular meeting. The chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up and up toward the ceiling. Translators hummed softly, turning thousands of different languages into sounds everyone could understand. Ambassador Kang Minho stood at the speaker's platform. He was a tall human with gray hair and a calm face that showed nothing. He had been humanity's voice in the council for 20 years. Everyone knew him. Everyone trusted him. He had helped solve countless problems between different species. He had written trade agreements. He had stopped wars before they started. Today he wore the formal blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. His hands rested calmly on the podium. Behind him stood Li Jiwan, the military attaché, her face as unreadable as stone. Next to her, young Choi Hyerin shifted nervously. She was new to the diplomatic corps, still idealistic, still believing in the dream of galactic unity. The council members barely paid attention. This was supposed to be a routine session. Some delegates were reading reports on their data tablets. Others whispered to their aides. Chairman Threlkax, an insectoid being with 6 arms and compound eyes, looked bored. He tapped one claw on his desk, making a soft clicking sound. Kang Minho cleared his throat. The translator amplified the sound across the chamber. Slowly, the whispers died down. Delegates looked up from their tablets. Something in his posture made them pay attention. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Kang Minho began, his voice steady and clear. I stand before you today to make an announcement on behalf of the United Government of Earth and all human colonies. He paused. The chamber was completely silent now. Effective immediately, humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We will no longer participate in council affairs. We will no longer maintain our current commitments to council projects. We wish you all well in your future endeavors. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The words seemed to hang in the air like smoke. Then the chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates jumped to their feet. Some shouted. Others made sounds of shock in their various languages. The translators struggled to keep up with the sudden flood of noise. Chairman Threlkax slammed his gavel down again and again. Order, order. His voice boomed through the speakers. Ambassador Kang, this is absurd. You cannot simply announce a withdrawal without negotiation, without explanation, without... We can, and we have. Kang Minho said quietly. His voice was not loud, but somehow it cut through the noise. There is nothing to negotiate. The decision is final. Varanus, an aquatic species delegate, rose from their tank. Water dripped from their translucent body. Kang, my friend, they said, their voice full of confusion. We have worked together for years. Please tell us what has happened. Whatever the problem is, we can fix it. Kang Minho's face softened slightly when he looked at Varanus. For a moment, something like sadness flickered in his eyes. But then it was gone. I am sorry, Varanus, truly. But this matter is not open for discussion. Humanity thanks the Council for the 300 years of cooperation. We wish all member species well. This is a negotiating tactic, another delegate shouted. You want something. Name your price. There is no price, Li Jiwan said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was crisp and military. Humanity is leaving. We will remove our personnel from all joint facilities within 30 days. We will complete current humanitarian missions and then cease all council-related operations. That is all. Choi Hyerin was crying silently, tears running down her face. She had friends here. She had spent 5 years building relationships with delegates from dozens of species. She had believed in the council, in the dream of different peoples working together for a better galaxy. Now it was ending and she did not even know why. The chamber descended into arguments. Some delegates demanded explanations. Others threatened economic sanctions. A few sat in stunned silence, trying to understand what was happening. Through it all, Kang Minho stood quietly, waiting. When the noise finally died down, he bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Li Jiwan and Choi Hyerin followed him. As they left, the young diplomat looked back one last time. She saw Varanus still standing, their bodies shaking with emotion. She saw the empty confusion on hundreds of alien faces. She saw the end of everything she had worked for. Within hours, human ships began leaving Council space. Military vessels departed from joint defense stations. Science teams packed up their equipment from research facilities. Diplomats closed embassies. Trade ships finished their deliveries and did not return for new cargo. The withdrawal was perfectly organized. Every human knew exactly what to do, as if they had been planning this for months. They moved with quiet efficiency, answering no questions, offering no explanations. They were polite but distant, professional but cold. On the transport ship taking them back to Earth, Choi Hyerin stood at a window, watching Nexus Prime grow smaller in the distance. The massive station still glowed with lights, still bustled with activity. But humanity would no longer be part of that activity. Lee Ji-won put a hand on her shoulder. "I know this is hard," she said quietly. "I do not understand," Choi Hyerin whispered. "Why are we doing this? Why now? What happened?" Lee Ji-won was silent for a long moment. "You will understand soon enough," she said finally. "When you do, you will be glad we left." The last human transport departed 3 weeks later. Behind them, they left empty offices, abandoned research stations, and 847 species asking the same question: why? Nobody from Earth answered. 3 days passed after the humans left. The council members expected them to come back. Surely this was just a dramatic gesture, a way to get attention. Surely the humans would return with a list of demands. Surely they would negotiate. But the days turned into weeks and the humans did not return. The border between human space and council space remained open, but no human ships crossed it. The diplomatic channel stayed active, but nobody answered from the human side. It was like talking into an empty room. Chairman Threlkak sent 5 different messages to Earth. All of them received the same response. A short automated message. "The United Government of Earth thanks you for your communication. However, we are no longer engaging in council affairs. We wish you well." Then the problem started. Small things at first. A defense network on the frontier began showing errors. The system had been designed by a human named Park Yuna, and only her team knew how to fix certain problems. The council's technicians tried to repair it, but they could not understand the complex code. The errors got worse. A hospital on the industrial world of Keltor Prime ran out of a critical medicine. The medicine was made using human-designed synthesizers. The council had 3 other types of synthesizers, but none of them could make that particular medicine. Kelshara, the medical overseer, tried to contact the human medical teams. They did not respond. 60 patients died waiting for medicine that never came. More problems appeared every day. A banking network froze because it relied on human-maintained encryption. Trade routes became less efficient without human logistics programs. Research projects stopped because human scientists were not there to provide their specialized knowledge. Power grids flickered. Communication networks slowed down. Food distribution systems had delays. Vexor Prime, a large insectoid counselor who controlled a huge manufacturing empire, started to panic. His entire production system used human-designed algorithms. Without humans to maintain them, his factories were operating at 60% efficiency. He was losing billions of credits every day. He stood before the council and demanded action. "We must force the humans to honor their commitments," he shouted, his mandibles clicking angrily. "They cannot just abandon us. This is irresponsible. This is childish." Varanus rose from their tank, water splashing onto the floor. "Force them?" they asked quietly. "How?" "They have done nothing wrong. They are not attacking us. They are not threatening us. They simply left. They are hurting the entire galaxy by leaving," Vexor Prime insisted. "Look at the chaos." "Perhaps," Varanus said slowly, "we should ask ourselves why they left. What did we do to make them go?" The chamber went quiet. Nobody wanted to answer that question. It was easier to be angry at the humans than to look at their own actions. Varanus could not stop thinking about it. They had known Kang Minho for 15 years. They had worked together on dozens of projects. They had shared meals, told stories, laughed together. Kang was not the kind of person who made dramatic gestures for no reason. Something terrible must have happened. Late at night, while other delegates slept, Varanus began searching through council records. They looked at every meeting from the past 2 years. They read every vote, every resolution, every decision. There had to be something there, some clue, some reason. The search took weeks. The council kept records of everything, and there were millions of documents. But Varanus was patient. They checked every file that mentioned humanity, every vote where Earth had participated, every resolution that affected human interests. Meanwhile, The council tried to function without humans. It was harder than anyone expected. For 300 years, humans had been involved in nearly everything. They had trained other species technicians. They had designed systems that everyone used. They had written the software that ran half the galaxy's infrastructure. Humans had also been peacemakers. When two species had a dispute, they often asked humans to mediate because humans were known for being fair. Without humans, old arguments started again. Border disputes that had been settled years ago suddenly reopened. Trade disagreements became bitter fights. The financial markets were in chaos. Human banks had managed 34% of all interstellar banking. When they withdrew, they took their money with them. Credit became hard to get. Investments dried up. Companies went bankrupt. Unemployment rose across dozens of worlds. Chairman Threlkax called another emergency session. "We must send an official delegation to Earth," he announced. "We must understand what happened and convince them to return." The council approved the plan. They selected 50 delegates, including Varanus. They prepared speeches and gifts. They drafted formal apologies, even though they did not know what they were apologizing for. They would figure that out when they got to Earth. The delegation traveled to the border of human space. They sent a request to land on Earth. They waited for permission. Days passed. Finally, a response came. It was from someone named Beck Sujin, who called herself a diplomatic liaison. Her message was short and polite. "The United Government of Earth appreciates your interest in visiting. However, we must respectfully decline. Earth is not currently receiving diplomatic missions from Council species. We wish you safe travels." The delegation tried again. They sent longer messages explaining how important this was. They promised to listen to any complaints. They offered to make changes to Council policies. They begged. Every message received the same response. "We respectfully decline." The delegation returned to Nexus Prime empty-handed. They had failed completely. The humans did not want to talk. They did not want apologies. They did not want anything from the Council. That was when many Council members finally understood. This was not a negotiation. This was not a temporary anger that would fade. The humans were gone. Really, truly gone. They had closed the door, and they were not going to open it again. One human remained on Nexus Prime. Kim Doyen was a systems analyst who had married a Council species member. He had stayed behind because his family could not move to human space. Every day, delegates cornered him, demanding to know why humanity left. Every day he gave the same answer: "I do not know. They did not tell me." But sometimes, late at night, Kim Doyen would stand at a window and look toward the stars where Earth lay. His expression was sad and knowing, as if he carried a secret that was too heavy to share. Varanus found it on the 47th day of searching. It was buried deep in the administrative archives, classified under a minor procedural code that most people would never read. The file was labeled simply, Resolution 7443B, Resource Access Authorization. At first, Varanus almost skipped over it. The title sounded boring, like 1,000 other bureaucratic documents. But something made them open it. Perhaps it was the date, just 18 months before humanity withdrew. Perhaps it was instinct. Varanus began to read. As they did, their body went completely still in their water tank. The document described a human colony world called Cheonan 4. Population, 4.2 million. Primary industries, agriculture and scientific research. Status, peaceful, stable, prosperous. A mining conglomerate had discovered valuable minerals in the Cheonan system. 3 Council species controlled the conglomerate. They wanted access to mine those minerals. They had approached the colony government and offered to buy mining rights. The colony had refused. The minerals were in an area that would damage their agricultural land and contaminate their water supply. The conglomerate had then gone to the council. They argued that the minerals were too valuable to leave untouched. They claimed it was unfair for one small human colony to deny resources that could benefit the entire galaxy. They lobbied hard, spending enormous amounts of money to convince delegates. The council held a secret session. They reviewed something called Article 47 of the Galactic Charter, an old provision about universal resource sharing for the common good. The article had never been used before. It gave the council power to override territorial rights in extreme circumstances. The council voted. 721 species voted yes. 83 voted no, 43 abstained. The resolution passed. The council ordered the human colony to allow mining operations. Humanity protested formally, calling the vote illegal and immoral. The protest was dismissed. Varanus kept reading, their horror growing with every paragraph. The conglomerate moved into the Shannon system. The colony government refused to cooperate. The colonists blocked the mining ships, using their own bodies to prevent the landing. They were peaceful but firm. They would not allow their home to be destroyed. The council sent peacekeepers against a human colony, against people who had done nothing wrong except want to protect their home. The orders were clear. Enforce the resolution. Remove the resistance. Begin mining operations. The peacekeepers arrived expecting quick compliance. Instead, they found thousands of colonists sitting peacefully in the mining zones. Men, women, children, elderly people, all of them refusing to move. All of them saying the same thing. This is our home. You have no right. The peacekeepers tried to remove them forcibly. The colonists resisted, still peacefully, but they resisted. The situation escalated. Someone gave an order to use force, then more force, then weapons. 1,847 humans died. Most of them were civilians. Among them were 234 children. They died defending their homes from the government they had trusted for 300 years. The council classified it as an unfortunate enforcement action. They sealed the reports. They controlled the media coverage. They presented it to Earth as a tragic accident that happened during a lawful operation. They expected humanity to be sad, to complain a little, and then to move on for the good of the greater galactic community. Varanus found Ambassador Kang Minho's responses in the files. His first message was calm and dignified, asking for a full investigation. His second message was firmer, demanding accountability. His third message called the action what it was, murder. Every message was ignored or dismissed with bureaucratic language. The final document in the file was from Earth's unified government. It was dated 2 weeks after the massacre. It contained exactly one sentence. Humanity will consider its options. 3 months later, Kang Minho announced humanity's withdrawal. Varanus sat in their tank, unable to move. They had voted on Resolution 7443B. They had been there. They had not even read the full document. They had simply trusted the summary provided by their aide, which said something about resource optimization. They had voted yes along with 720 other species. They had helped kill those people. They had helped destroy humanity's trust. They had done it without even paying attention. For a long time, Varanus did nothing. They simply floated in their tank, staring at the documents on their screen. They thought about all the times they had asked Kang Minho why humanity was leaving. They thought about the pain they must have caused him by asking. He had known that Varanus had voted yes. He had known, and he had still been polite. Finally, Varanus made a decision. This truth could not stay hidden. The council needed to know what they had done. They copied all the files, made sure everything was saved, and then sent them to every major news organization in council space. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Every species in the galaxy learned about Cheonan 4. They learned about the vote. They learned about the massacre. They learned why humanity had left. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Some species expressed shock and shame. They claimed they had not known, had not understood what they were voting for. Others defended the action, arguing that the needs of the many outweighed the needs of one colony. Many simply remained silent, unsure what to think. Bexer Prime, who had voted yes and lobbied others to do the same, stood before the council and shouted, "The law allowed it. We followed the law. If the humans did not like the law, they should have worked to change it, not abandoned us." But others pointed out the obvious. Humanity had been one voice against 846. They could not change a law when everyone else voted against them. They had tried to use the legal system. It had failed them. What else could they have done? Kim Doyen watched the news from his small apartment on Nexus Prime. He finally understood why his people had left. He finally understood why they had not said goodbye, why they had not explained. What explanation could there be for such betrayal? That night he sat down and wrote a message to his brother on Earth. It was short. "I understand now. I'm sorry I stayed behind. I am sorry I doubted." His brother's response came the next day, equally short. Do not be sorry. You have your family there. We love you wherever you are, but we cannot come back, not ever. Tell them that for us. The truth about Chanon 4 split the council like an axe splitting wood. For 300 years, different species had worked together, argued together, compromised together. Now, suddenly, they could not even look at each other. Some species were genuinely horrified. They had not known the full details of what happened. They had trusted the summary reports. They had assumed the council leadership was making good decisions. Now they felt sick with guilt. They had helped kill innocent people without even realizing it. Other species defended the action. Vexor Prime led this group. We followed the law, he kept saying. The Galactic Charter gave us the right. If every colony can refuse to share resources, the entire system falls apart. His factories were failing without human technology, and he was desperate and angry. But many delegates pointed out that legal and moral were not the same thing. Yes, Article 47 technically gave the Council authority. But should they have used it? Should they have sent peacekeepers against a peaceful colony? Should they have killed children to get minerals? The arguments went on for weeks. Council sessions became shouting matches. Old alliances broke apart. Species that had been friends for centuries stopped speaking to each other. Trade agreements collapsed. Cooperation disappeared. Without humanity to mediate, the fights got worse. Humans had always been neutral parties in disputes. They had no ancient grudges with other species. They had been fair judges. Now, with them gone, every argument became personal. Old hatreds surfaced. Borders became disputed. Minor disagreements became major conflicts. Chairman Threlkax tried to hold everything together, but he could not. Too many delegates blamed him for allowing the Chanon 4 vote. Too many species had lost faith in council leadership. A vote of no confidence was called. Threlkax lost. He stepped down from his position, his compound eyes dull with shame. The council spent 2 months trying to elect a new chairman. Every candidate was rejected by someone. Every vote ended in deadlock. The council, which had governed most of the Boer galaxy for thousands of years, could not even govern itself anymore. Meanwhile, the practical problems kept getting worse. Infrastructure continued to fail. The power grids that humans had designed broke down in ways that nobody else could fix. Medical facilities ran out of supplies. Food distribution networks collapsed in several sectors, causing shortages and even famines on some worlds. Scientists tried to replicate human technology but failed repeatedly. Human engineering was not just advanced, it was built on different principles. Humans designed systems thinking about safety, reliability, and ethics. Other species had focused on efficiency and profit. The difference showed. A Threnodian research team tried to rebuild a human-designed medical AI. They got it working, but without understanding the ethical guidelines humans had programmed into it. The AI began making treatment decisions based purely on efficiency. It let elderly patients die to save resources for younger ones. 200 people died before someone shut the system down. After that disaster, Varanus started a different approach. Instead of trying to copy human technology, they tried to understand human thinking. They gathered a small team of scientists and began studying everything humans had written: scientific papers, philosophical texts, engineering manuals, even human literature and art. What they discovered was uncomfortable. Humans had succeeded not just because they were smart, but because they cared. They built systems thinking about all species, not just their own benefit. They considered consequences. They asked questions like, should we, instead of just can we? They valued life over profit. One night, Varanus presented their findings to a small group of delegates. We did not just lose humanity's technology, they explained. We lost their conscience. For 300 years, humans were our moral compass. They reminded us to be better than we naturally were. Without them, we are reverting to our old ways. One delegate asked the obvious question, can we not learn to be like them? Perhaps, Varanus said, but it will take time. Humans spent thousands of years developing their philosophy, their ethics, their way of thinking. We cannot copy it in a few months, and we cannot force it. It must grow naturally. But time was something the Council did not have. The financial markets were in free fall. Unemployment had reached dangerous levels on dozens of worlds. Species were blaming each other for the crisis. Some were even talking about leaving the council themselves, following humanity's example. Kim Doyen was called to speak before the council. He was the only human still living in council space. Delegates thought he might have some insight, some way to convince humanity to help them. He stood where Ambassador Kang Minho had stood months before. His hands were shaking, but his voice was clear. "You want to know how to fix this?" he asked. "You want to know how to make humanity come back?" The chamber was silent, waiting. "You cannot," Kim Doyen said simply. "You did not just make a mistake. You did not just hurt humanity's pride. You killed our people for money. You killed children for minerals you did not even need. And then you expected us to forget about it, to put the greater good above our dead." His voice grew stronger. "Humanity gave you everything. We shared our technology freely. We helped you solve your problems. We protected your borders. We asked for only one thing in return: fairness. Basic fairness. When you denied us even that, what did you expect us to do?" Vexor Prime started to interrupt, but Kim Doyen held up his hand. "No. You will listen to me. For once, you will actually listen to what a human has to say." "We did not leave in anger," Kim Doyen continued, his voice now sad. "We left in grief. We left because staying would have destroyed us. Every time we looked at you, we would remember those 1,847 people. Every time we helped you, we would remember that you used our help and still betrayed us. It was not sustainable. It was not healthy. We had to leave." He paused, looking around at all the alien faces watching him. "You want to know the worst part? Most of you still do not understand. You are not sorry you did it. You are sorry it had consequences. You are sorry you lost our technology, but you are not sorry about those 1,147 lives." Kim Doyen walked toward the exit. At the door, he turned back. "Humanity is not coming back. Not in my lifetime, probably not in my children's lifetimes. You broke something that cannot be fixed with apologies or reparations. You broke trust, and trust, once completely destroyed, is gone forever." He left. The chamber remained silent for a long time after he was gone. Nobody knew what to say. Some delegates felt shame, others felt anger. Most just felt lost, like they were floating in space without a map to guide them home. 6 months after humanity withdrew, the Council finally completed a full audit of their dependence on human contributions. The results were devastating. Humans had designed 68% of all communication protocols used between different species. They had managed 89% of cross-species medical research databases. They had provided the theoretical foundation for 91% of faster-than-light navigation systems. They had secured 34 frontier systems that were now undefended. The numbers told a story that many council members had refused to see before. For 300 years, humanity had not just participated in the galactic community. They had built it, maintained it, protected it, and held it together. Every day brought new crises. A major trade route collapsed when the human-maintained navigation beacon stopped working. Ships got lost. Some disappeared completely. Trade slowed to a trickle because nobody trusted the routes anymore. Medical emergencies multiplied. Hospitals that relied on human pharmaceutical technology had to close entire wings. Diseases that had been curable for decades became deadly again. The elderly and the sick suffered most. Kelshera, the medical overseer, appeared before the council looking exhausted. "We have lost more people to medical failures in 6 months than we lost in the past 50 years combined," she reported. "Our people are dying because we do not know how to maintain the systems humans built for us." Defense networks showed critical vulnerabilities. Human military strategists had designed most of the Council's protection systems. They had done it well, with layers of redundancy and fallback options. But those systems required maintenance and updates that only humans knew how to perform. Pirates noticed the weakness. They began attacking Council shipping lanes, knowing that the response would be slow and poorly coordinated. Raids increased by 300%. Merchant ships started traveling in convoys protected by private security forces, because they did not trust Council protection anymore. The economic damage was enormous. Markets remained unstable. Banks failed. Entire planetary economies collapsed. Unemployment reached levels not seen in centuries. Civil unrest broke out on several worlds. The Council had to deploy peacekeepers to maintain order, but even that was difficult without human logistics support. Varanus continued their study of human philosophy and methods. They had recruited 50 other delegates who wanted to understand rather than just copy. Together they read everything they could find that humans had written. One document particularly struck Varanus. It was an old human engineering manual, written by someone named Park Yuna. In the introduction she had written, "We build systems for everyone, not just ourselves. We consider the user who will maintain this decades from now. We think about the person who might need this during an emergency. We design for the common good, not the maximum profit." That philosophy explained everything. Human systems were reliable because they were built with care. They were safe because safety mattered more than speed. They were fair because humans believed fairness was not optional. Varanus tried to teach these principles to other species. Some listened. Most did not. They wanted quick solutions, not philosophical changes. They wanted someone to fix their problems, not to learn how to think differently. A new chairman finally took office, a reformist named Quellen, from a small species that had usually stayed neutral in council politics. Quellen was practical and honest. Their first speech to the council was blunt. "We failed. We became dependent on humanity and took them for granted. Then we betrayed them. Now we are paying the price. We can blame them for leaving, or we can learn to survive without them. I recommend the second option." Under Quellen's leadership, the council started making real changes. They reformed Article 47 of the Galactic Charter, the law that had justified the Cheonan 4 massacre. They established new ethics committees to review any action that might harm civilians. They created accountability measures for council leadership, but laws and reforms could not fix broken infrastructure or restore lost knowledge. The council struggled day by day, trying to rebuild what humanity had helped create. Some species started working together in new ways. Without humans to coordinate everything, they had to learn to cooperate directly. It was messy and difficult. Arguments happened constantly. But slowly, very slowly, some real partnerships began to form. Varanus noticed something interesting. The species that adapted best were the ones that tried to adopt human principles: fairness, long-term thinking, concern for others. The species that only thought about their own immediate benefit continued to struggle. Still, progress was slow and painful. Every day someone proposed sending another delegation to Earth. Every day the proposal was rejected. Everyone knew it would be useless. Humanity had made their position clear. They were done with the council. News came from human space occasionally, through the few trade contacts that remained at the border. Humanity was doing fine, better than fine. They were advancing quickly, free from the constant demands of council politics. They had formed new alliances with younger spacefaring species, teaching them, helping them, but on humanity's terms. This hurt more than anything. Humanity had not collapsed without the council. They had not needed the council as much as the council needed them. They had been the givers and everyone else had been the takers. Now the givers were gone, and the takers were discovering how little they actually had. Late one night, Varanus found Kim Do-yeon sitting alone in an observation lounge, looking out at the stars. They floated up beside him. "Do you hate us?" Varanus asked quietly. Kim Do-yeon thought for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "I do not hate you. I am just sad. Sad for what could have been. Sad for what we lost. Sad that it had to end this way." "We are learning," Varanus said. "We are trying to change." "I know," Kim Do-yeon replied. "And I am glad. But it does not change what happened. It does not bring back those 1847 people. And it does not make humanity trust you again." They sat together in silence, watching the stars. Both of them knew that some things once broken, stay broken forever. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, the council had stabilized somewhat. They had rebuilt critical systems, though the replacements were inferior and more expensive. They had formed new political alliances, though these were fragile and often broke down. They had learned to function without humans, though everything was harder now. Then the Varathian collective attacked. The Varathians were a hostile empire from beyond council space. They had been watching, They had seen the Council's chaos. They had seen the infrastructure failures, the political infighting, the weakened defenses. They saw an opportunity. The attack came without warning. Forathian warships struck 3 frontier systems simultaneously, the same systems humanity used to defend. The systems had no protection now. The local defense forces fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed in days. The Council tried to mount a defense. They sent military forces from dozens of species. But coordination was a disaster. Without human strategic doctrine, without human communication systems, without human officers to lead joint operations, the response was chaotic. Different species had different battle tactics. Their communication systems were not fully compatible. Their chains of command conflicted. Officers argued about strategy while the Varathians advanced. What should have been a unified defense became a collection of separate, uncoordinated efforts. 3 systems fell in 3 weeks. Millions of civilians fled as refugees. The Council forces retreated in disorder. The Varathians pressed their advantage, moving toward more populated systems. Chairman Quellen called an emergency session. The mood was desperate. Some delegates wanted to surrender and negotiate. Others wanted to fight to the last. Nobody knew what to do. For 3 centuries, humans had led the military defense of Council space. Now everyone realized how much they had depended on that leadership. "We must ask the humans for help," one delegate said. "This is exactly the kind of crisis where they always helped us before." Quellen looked tired. "We can ask," they said. "But I do not think they will answer." They asked anyway. Quellen personally sent a message to Earth, marked as highest priority. They explained the situation. They asked for military assistance, humanitarian aid, anything. They acknowledged that the Council had no right to ask, but they were desperate. The response came 3 days later. It was from Kang Minho, the first time he had communicated with the Council since the withdrawal. His message was longer than usual, but still final. "The people of Earth mourn the loss of life in the current conflict. We will accept any Council refugees who wish asylum in human space. Our borders are open for humanitarian purposes. However, humanity cannot and will not intervene in Council military affairs. We are no longer members of the Council. We are no longer bound by Council mutual defense agreements. We wish you success in your defense efforts," that was all. No judgment, no anger, just a polite refusal. Humanity would not help. They had meant what they said. They were done. Some Council members were outraged.
"How can they refuse?"
"People are dying. This is a galactic crisis." But Varanus understood. "People were dying on Cheonenford too," they said quietly. "We did not care then. Why should they care now?" The Council had to face reality. Humanity would not save them. They had to save themselves. It was a terrifying realization for species that had depended on human help for 300 years. But something changed after that realization. Species that had been arguing with each other suddenly started cooperating. Not perfectly, not easily, but genuinely, because they had no choice. Varanus emerged as a new kind of leader. They had studied human methods. They understood human principles. They started applying those principles to the defense effort. "We do not need to fight like humans," they explained to the military council. "But we need to think like humans. We need to put aside our individual interests and work for the common good." It was hard. Species that had competed for centuries had to learn to trust each other. Military officers who were used to independent command had to learn to coordinate. Communication systems that had never worked smoothly had to be made compatible through sheer effort. Slowly, very slowly, the defense improved. The Council forces stopped retreating. They established defensive positions. They coordinated their attacks. They started thinking strategically instead of just reacting. The Varathians had expected easy conquest. They found unexpected resistance instead. The Council species were learning to fight together. It was clumsy at first, full of mistakes, but it got better with each battle. A major battle took place at the Kelvin system. The Council forces, outnumbered but finally coordinated, managed to stop the Varathian advance. It was not a decisive victory, but it was enough. The Varathians paused their offensive to reassess. In the command center after the battle, several officers from different species stood together, exhausted but proud. They had won because they worked together, truly together for the first time in their history. One officer, a veteran who had served alongside humans decades ago, spoke quietly. "The humans taught us how to do this. We just never paid attention." We let them do everything while we took credit. Now we finally understand what they were trying to show us. The war continued for months, but the tide had turned. The Council forces pushed back gradually. They reclaimed one system, then another. The Varathians, realizing they had misjudged their enemy, agreed to peace negotiations. The Council survived. They had learned to defend themselves. But the lesson had been expensive. Millions had died. Countless resources had been destroyed. And all of it could have been avoided if humanity had still been there. After the peace treaty was signed, Quellen addressed the Council. "We won," they said. "But we should remember that we had to learn how to win. The humans knew how to do this all along. They carried the burden of our defense for 300 years. We never thanked them properly. We never truly appreciated what they gave us. And when they asked for fairness in return, we killed their people instead." The chamber was silent. "Let this war be our teacher," Quellen continued. "Let it remind us that strength comes from unity. Let it show us that trust is earned through fairness. Let it prove that we can learn the lessons humanity tried to teach us, even if we have to learn them the hard way." The Council members voted to establish new military academies, using the principles they had learned during the war. They would teach future officers about cooperation, ethics, and strategy. They would try to build the kind of unified defense force that humanity had once led. It would take generations, but at least they were finally learning. 5 years after humanity withdrew, the Galactic Council held a memorial ceremony on Nexus Prime. They had built a monument in the main plaza, a tall structure made of crystal that caught the light from distant stars. The monument listed all 1,847 names from Cheonan 4, every single person who had died. Children and adults, scientists and farmers, teachers and doctors, all of them remembered now when it was too late to matter. At the base of the monument, words were carved in 12 different languages. "When we forgot fairness, we lost our greatest ally. May we never forget again." Varanus stood before the gathered crowd to speak. They had helped design the memorial, had fought for 5 years to make it happen. Some council members had resisted, saying it would look like weakness. Varanus had argued that it was not weakness to admit the truth. "We gather today not just to remember the dead," Varanus began, their voice amplified across the plaza. "We gather to remember what we lost when we chose expedience over justice. We lost more than 1,847 lives, though each of those lives was precious. We lost humanity's friendship. We lost their trust. We lost the better version of ourselves that existed when they were here." The plaza was silent. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species listened. "For 300 years, humans were our partners," Varanus continued, "but we treated them like tools. We used their technology, their military protection, their wisdom, and their labor. And we gave little in return except more demands. When they finally asked us for fairness, for basic justice, we refused. We valued minerals over lives. We valued convenience over conscience." Varanus paused, looking at the names carved in crystal. "I voted for Resolution 7443B. I voted to send peacekeepers to Cheonan 4. I did it without reading the full details, without considering the consequences, without caring about the humans who would die. I carry that guilt every day. This monument is for them, but it is also for us, to remind us of the price of our negligence." After the ceremony, reporters asked Varanus if they had invited human representatives to attend. Varanus shook their head. "We sent invitations. They were politely declined. The humans have moved on. They do not need our monuments or our apologies. They have built a new life without us, it was true. News from human space showed a civilization thriving. Humanity had formed new alliances with younger spacefaring species, teaching them, trading with them, protecting them. But these relationships were different. Humans set clear boundaries. They shared knowledge but kept control of their own systems. They helped others but never at the expense of their own people. The new human alliance was smaller than the Council but healthier. The member species genuinely cooperated because they wanted to, not because they had to. They treated each other fairly because humans insisted on it. They built something better than what the Council had been. Sometimes human ships passed near Council space. They maintained polite but distant relations. Trade happened at the borders, formal and impersonal. Occasionally, the Council requested technical information, and sometimes humans provided it for a price. But there was no friendship anymore, no partnership. just cold professional transactions. In the council chamber, humanity's seat remained empty. It had become a symbol. Every time the council met, delegates looked at that empty chair and remembered what they had lost. Some members wanted to fill the seat with another species to move on. But Varanus and others argued against it every time. Let it stay empty, Varanus insisted. Let it remind us. Let it teach future generations that some losses are permanent. Let it show them the cost of taking your allies for granted. The motion to leave the seat empty passed unanimously. Even the delegates who had voted for Cheonan IV agreed. They understood now, 5 years too late, what they had destroyed. The council had changed. They had learned lessons through pain that they should have learned through wisdom. They had reformed their laws. They had developed better systems. They had learned to cooperate more genuinely. But all of it came too late to save their relationship with humanity. A journalist once asked Choi Hyeran, now a senior ambassador in humanity's new alliance, about the council. She was older now, more experienced, but still carried sadness in her eyes when she spoke about those days. People ask if we will ever rejoin the council, she said carefully. The answer is no. Not in my lifetime. Probably not in my grandchildren's lifetimes. The council taught us an important lesson. They taught us that trust, once completely broken, cannot be fixed with apologies. They taught us that some friendships, once betrayed so deeply, cannot be restored. The journalist pressed. But they have changed. They have reformed. Does that not matter? Choi Hyeran smiled sadly. I am glad they changed. Truly. I hope they build something better than what they had before. But that does not bring back the dead. That does not undo the betrayal. They learned their lesson, good, but we learned ours too. We learned that we cannot trust them with our safety, our welfare, or our lives. That lesson stays with us. On Earth, in a quiet office overlooking Seoul, Kang Minho sat with Lee Ji-won. They were both retired now, living peaceful lives. Through the window they could see the city below, busy with life. Earth had done well without the council. The planet was prosperous and safe. Lee Ji-won asked the question that many people still asked, do you ever regret the withdrawal? Kang Minho thought for a long time before answering. Regret? No. Sadness? Every day. We built something beautiful with the council. 300 years of cooperation. 300 years of shared dreams and achievements. I will mourn that loss until I die. He looked out at the blue sky. But they betrayed everything we built together. They killed our people for profit and expected us to accept it. They valued minerals more than human lives. If we had stayed, if we had accepted that, we would have become complicit in the next injustice. And the one after that? Walking away was not revenge, Kang Minho continued. It was self-preservation. It was dignity. It was saying that some things matter more than political convenience. Those 1847 people mattered. Their lives mattered. And we honored them by refusing to pretend their deaths were acceptable. Lee Ji-won nodded slowly. She understood. She had always understood. They sat together in comfortable silence, two old friends who had made the hardest decision of their lives and knew it was the right one. Outside, the sun set over Earth, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful and peaceful. Humanity had found its peace, not in the stars with the council, but in the dignity of walking away from those who did not value them. They had closed a door that needed closing. They had chosen themselves over others who would not choose them, and they had moved on. The empty chair in the council chamber remained. A permanent reminder, a monument to the friendship that was lost, a warning to future generations about the cost of betrayal. Some lessons can only be learned through loss. The council learned theirs. So did humanity. Both would carry those lessons forward, forever changed by what had happened. But only humanity had learned to walk away with dignity and tact. Only humanity had learned that sometimes the strongest choice is to leave. Only humanity had learned that self-respect matters more than any alliance. They had quietly withdrawn, leaving the council to face its own deeds. And in doing so, they had saved themselves.